you want me to start? My dad and my grandpa homesteaded here.
Okay.
And then my grandpa died. And my dad was just out of the Navy, World War I. And they homesteaded here. And then my grandpa died at the age of 50. And there were still 3 children to be raised. So my dad went to Chicago, where they had family, and he worked to send money for his mom to raise these children. So they stayed here for a while, and then they moved back to Topeka, Kansas, my grandma and the kids. But meanwhile, my dad met my mom, and they married and moved to Milwaukee, where he had a real good job throughout the Depression. Then he was seriously injured on the job and was unable to do it anymore. So they decided to come back to Craig, where he still had the homesteads. And he thought of farming, but it was wartime, and you couldn't get equipment, you couldn't get gas, you couldn't get tires. So he went to work for the different ones here. And later he worked with a gentleman who had the equipment, and Dad had the land, so they farmed between them, but it was just small time. And then he picked up a job, and then later my mom started a flower shop here. And I married just 2 weeks out of high school. I met my husband, he was just out of the service, and I was 15 years old and not allowed to date. So he would come to the house and visit with my mom, my dad, my brother, and me, and that's how he courted me. Could you believe that?
That's neat.
And let's see, what else? Of course, later we were allowed to go to the ball games and that, you know, but eventually we dated. But in the beginning, he was very thoughtful, but the dating was at home. Also, he taught me to drive later, shortly before we were married. We were engaged at the junior prom, and I was given my ring just before the prom. And then we married. We bought these lots out here. Do you want all this stuff?
Yeah,
Oh.
this is great.
We bought the lots. It was a farming community out here, and there were only 2 or 3 houses. And we bought the 4 lots here for $35 a lot.
Wow.
And $50 for the corner. And then later, after several years, we bought the extra 4 lots because he didn't want it to have it all close together, you know. And he was going to get a GI loan and build us a home. And they wanted so much technicalities and things that were expensive, like blueprints drawn and all that, that we decided that wasn't the route we couldn't afford. He was only making $120 a month. That's a month. And even then, that wasn't much. He was with the highway department. And so we had come out trying to decide. We were clearing the lots, trying to decide what to do. And we wound up buying a little 1-room, 10 by 20 trailer add-on. Somebody had it just to add on to their trailer. And we bought that. And it had a little closet and a front porch, and then the 1 room. No bathroom, outdoor bathroom, no telephones. And but we were happy, and that was important. And let's see what else. Our first son was born 3 days after our first anniversary, which we were hoping he'd be on the anniversary because that was Father's Day. And now let's see, what else can I tell?
Well, when you first came to Craig, what was it like? What do you remember?
Very little.
Very little.
To go ice skating, they would freeze one of the lots in town, or the boys in our group, we had to be in a group. We weren't allowed to just date.
Right.
And so they'd take shovels and shovel off the creek there by the park, and then we'd ice skate, and that was neat. To go swimming, we had to go to the river because there was no swimming pool here, and or go to Steamboat or to Juniper. And we did have the theater. And then when I was a freshman in high school, I had a hard time in school. I came from Catholic school to a school where everybody went to school together from kindergarten on, and some of the parents too. I was the new kid, and it was awful hard to break in. And in fact, I nearly broke in. We went to our 8th grade picnic, and I always wanted to be one of the bunch, and I tried very hard. So after the picnic, we went to Steamboat in the park, and afterwards they said, we're going to rent some horses. Do you want to go, or don't you know how to ride? So I go, oh, yeah. But what I didn't tell them, my riding experience was on a pony where the guy takes you around in a carnival, you know. I thought I'd die before that ride was over. But anyway, I went to work at the theater as a freshman, and that was a good breakthrough with the kids. Because, you know, and then the theater was a big thing. That was really the only entertainment around. And then later I was a soda jerk in the drugstore, the Craig drugstore, and where you could get a dish of ice cream or Coke for a nickel, or a fancy sundae for 15 cents. So that was interesting. And then as a child, I took music lessons, and my granddaughter and my daughter. Let's see, what else? My folks were real good about taking us to concerts and things. In Milwaukee, we had a lot of opportunity to see the big name bands, Guy Lombardo and Tommy Dorsey, at the theaters. And I took music lessons. My folks took me to the music store and said, you pick what instrument you want. Not what we want, but what you want. And would you believe I walked into the music store, and there it was waiting for me, and not a very ladylike instrument, the piano accordion. And so they gave me music lessons, and then when we came to Craig, there was a wonderful music teacher. She continued on with me. And then when my kids were very small, in between, before they were all born, they were all quite little. Well, I think the last one was pretty little. So I had all 4, but the money was very short. And so I gave music lessons. And I did that for a while and really enjoyed it. And still, now this is, I'm talking about back in the 50s and early 60s. And, you know, there's still the kids that come up to me and recognize me and mention their lessons, and it was really neat. And let's see, what else can I tell you?
Well, what was school like here?
Well, like I said, it was very hard. But we had the school, do you know where Bree Street is? Okay, they had the junior high downstairs and the high school upstairs.
Oh, okay.
And in the basement, they had the lockers. And, let's see. Oh, that's another thing. One of the adventures, if you'd like to hear about it.
Sure.
I worked the theater clear through until I was married, from freshman on. And this one day, I had worked the night before, and we went to school, and we were in study hall, which was upstairs at Bree's school. And somebody hollered, there's smoke. There's a fire somewhere. And they got to look, and sure enough, there's a fire. You could see the smoke, and it was quite big. It was downtown, obviously. So one of the girls from the office came in a little while later and said, the theater's on fire. And they never did figure out what happened. But something in the morning or sometime early in the day, something caught fire. Well, the theater burnt, and the little Kellogg's coffee shop next door burnt, and on the other side, Brinkley Hardware burnt, and it wiped out almost the whole block. Well, of course, the theater was out, you know, and then they had the theater where it is now. The theater where it was is where H&R Block is, and they moved to where the theater is now. It was the old theater to start with, so they remodeled it, and then we were able to go back to work, and it was nice, but it was sad. And the theater was quite interesting. It had, you bought the ticket right outside the cashier, and then you went in and gave the ticket to the man, and there were 2 aisles, and the candy in between. And then on the right-hand aisle, you went clear through the exit and upstairs where the girls changed clothes. We wore uniforms. And they were kind of a medium blue with, like the front buttons were like a drum major would have, and the bell-bottom trousers, and we all carried flashlights and escorted everybody, you know. So, and that pretty well tells you about me. Well, not quite. When our kids got a little bit bigger, I always loved kids. Kids always hung out here. And my kids brought their friends, the neighbor kids came, and so when our youngest was 9, I didn't want to smother them with mother love. So we decided to take in foster children. And we did that for about 10 years. And altogether we had 25 of them, 3 at a time. And we dearly loved them all. Well, my son, Dan, the one you met, is with the Red Cross. And Dean was the little guy that we had the longest. And his mother is also with the Red Cross. And through we had communicated a little bit after he was adopted, and then we kind of lost track. And through the Red Cross, they connected and set up so I could meet Dean again after 33 years. And they took me to Sterling so that I could see him, and that was a thrill of a lifetime, because you never know what happened to these kids. So that was a real thrill.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Well, moving forward through that, how did you get to working at the museum or working on your research?
Okay. In 1987, we were on a Discover Colorado trip, is what we called it. And we went to Telluride, and we were at the tour places, you know, and I seen this book, and it said about cemeteries, and I thought, oh, how gross can you get? Who wants to know about cemeteries? Well, when I opened the book, it wasn't the cemeteries, it's the people in it. And it told each one's obituary, basically. But it's the people that started Craig, it's the people that helped get Craig going. And so we come back, and I went to the library, and I talked to Mrs. Babb and asked her if we had a book like that. And she said, no, but we sure could use one. So I started, but there was nothing to grab hold of, and I went to the museum and talked to Dan, and he said, well, we got the old newspapers. So that's what I did. I had handwritten all the information I could get from the old pantograph papers. And I also included people that helped build Craig and left and died somewhere else. And it isn't just Craig, it's the whole county plus Snake River. And so I included the boys that went into service and died overseas and were buried there. I tried to include everybody that really should be included. And I did that from 1987 until now, but I haven't been able to type lately. But it was all handwritten to start with. Then I went to the library, and Dan told me, he said, well, the library's got this on microfiche. So what I did, I went to the library and found out they showed me how to use it, and I've been able to get it printed up, and they didn't charge me for the printing, and excuse me, and so I started in 1897, I think. That was the first pantograph. And I started there, and I've been working forward in that. So I had from 87 till now, and then 1890-something until 1945, and I'm trying real hard. Their printer went down, so Dan's been going with me, and he's putting on. Now, excuse me if I don't have the smarts. I think it's called flash drive. Okay, and then he goes with me, and they've got where you can see the film, but the printer didn't work. So he's been putting everything on flash drives so that I can go in. And as I finish each year, I turn it over to the library and the museum. And I've got 11 volumes in there now.
Wow.
The Historical Society and a girl I worked with at one time put everything into page protectors and in beautiful albums. And then after the last of the foster children left, I went to work at Moffat County State Bank. And I was a switchboard operator, and I loved the people I worked with. They were so good to me. And I had the opportunity to study graphoanalysis. That's handwriting analysis. And we used that mostly for forgeries and things like that. But then I became a life member of the International Graphoanalysis Society, a life member. So I felt real good about that. And then, let's see, then when my husband died, it turned my whole world upside down, because he died 4 days after our 59th wedding anniversary. So we had that anniversary together, and then his loss, and that's when he was in World War II. And my kids have been fabulous. They've been there for me every step of the way. I've got 4 of them, 2 boys and 2 girls. And every one of them have been fantastic. But you know, it's a whole different world with your marriage than it is with your kids. And I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go to bed, cover my head, and pretend it didn't happen. But we knew it was going to. So, in order to keep going, the community college has offered classes to seniors. And I thought that would be a great way to get going, you know. And Susan, the one that just came in, my daughter, she was working with Carol, who was, she was a teacher for the, the class I'm in now. I can't think of words. Or my life story, memoir, you know, family memoirs. Anyway, she was teaching the class, and they were getting together to tell the story about Stella Craig, who ran Juniper Springs. They put it in book form. Well, they took me over there to sit through the class till they got done, then we were going to Juniper. Well, I was so impressed with the class, I decided to take it. Because so many times people say, you know, I wish my dad used to tell stories, my mom, and I never thought to record them, you know, or have them write it out, and now it's too late. So I decided to go ahead and take that class, along with computer, which was really something. Teach an old gal computer, and you got a job. And then I took genealogy, but I stayed with the memoir writing all through the last 4 years, and I loved it. I really did. And now I have to tell you something special. There's a girl that used, like I said, kids always came here because we'd bake cookies or do crafts or whatever. And she started coming over the summer before she went in 3rd grade, and had come all the years through grade school, high school, college. She went in Junction. And one day she brought a young man to meet me. He was her fiancé.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was invited to the wedding in Grand Junction. And when I got there, her folks presented me with a corsage like the grandmas.
Oh.
And put their arms around me and said they loved me.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the wedding, they came and said, "Are you Mrs. Bingham?" I said, "Yes." They want your picture with the bride and groom. And they treated me like family.
Mm-hmm.
So early this year, she contacted my kids and asked if they would be offended if they all got together with her to put out a book on my memoir writing.
Mm-hmm.
And on Father's Day, I was presented with it.
Oh, wow.
And they've got 110 of my stories.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. So they printed the book for you?
They had it printed.
Okay.
But they all work together. Dan is, he's really interested in this stuff, and he'd go up to her folks' place, and they would, he had all of this on different discs and stuff, and they put out the book.
Wow.
So now I'm trying so hard to get back on my feet and to continue with my research, because I want to fill that 40 years in before I die, and I'm trying really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my life up to now.
Okay.
And then when this happened, my kids have been there day and night. My daughter from California was here. She'd come to visit,
Mm-hmm.
and this happened after she was here. And then they were, I have a bedroom downstairs. By the way, my husband built the house
Oh.
Wow.
for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very proud of it, and I hope I can stay here. But when I fell, I knew I did something bad here right away. And I called out, and they couldn't hear me. Her husband had just driven out. And talk about a guardian angel. When I fell, I had my regular walker, and evidently I had pneumonia and didn't realize it, because that's what made me real weak. And my lifeline fell out of the walker, and after I called a couple times, all of a sudden that thing went off. And they heard it because it's hooked to the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to see what went on. And they were here for me. If they had been alone, that'd been interesting. Of course, the lifeline was a blessing, because if I hadn't answered, they'd come anyway. But anyway, then she was to drive back with him, only she stayed. They took me to the emergency room, and then she decided to just stay over and then fly home. She went home just a week ago Saturday. And then all the kids, Susan and Dan's wife and Rosemary, my daughter, were all here. And then I have a son in Fruta who came out as often as he could.
Mm-hmm.
And they were here for the surgery. And so they've been such a blessing to me. They still stay nights and are here. Somebody's here most of the day. Once in a while I tell them, get away for a couple hours, because I can do all right, you know, as long as I don't take any chances, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I try not to when I'm by myself. I try to pretty well stay put or be very careful when I do get up.
Right.
But they've been such a blessing to me. And my grandkids and my great-grandkids have all been here.
Wow.
I have 12 grandchildren.
12 grandchildren?
6 of them have been adopted. 5 of them adopted, and 1, they took her in and raised her, Dan and Lynn. She was not adoptable, but they took her and raised her. And the other 4 our son and Fruta took in and raised. They'll get it.
Okay.
And if they do everything for me. And then I have 15 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
15 great-grandchildren.
Uh-huh. And that's including from the adopted ones and all, you know.
Right. So your family continued on that process of foster children adopting?
No, they adopted them.
A full adoption.
Yeah. It just happened. I guess they love kids like I do. But that pretty well tells you everything.
Well, how have you seen Craig change over
Oh.
the years?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Because, like I said, the swimming holes were either at the river in Juniper or we had to go to Steamboat. And the stores was very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what? I've got the first book I got with Susan? No, she don't hear me. I've got the first book that I was going to show you that I got out of the first Pandagraph, if you'd like to see it.
Okay.
Why don't you, Suze? Come here. Bless you. You have Kleenex?
Sure.
They got me set up with everything right here. Would you get
Thank
my
you so
first
much.
Pandagraph book? I showed them where it is. It's in the back. I got such a kick out of it. I even put, like, the grocery store sales, and the Penny's was here then.
Uh-huh.
And, let's see, the post office was about across from where the Courier is now, or where the Daily Press is now.
How did you see the town change during the boom?
Well, it was a gush and a stop. It went from one extreme to the other. When it hit, man, there were people coming in. That's the one, hon. Thank you. Just set it there by one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, I mean, they were adding schools, everything was growing, and then all of a sudden when it stopped, things really melted down a little bit. And, let's see, in the 70s, we had a terrible flash flood. It rained horribly. My husband by then was working at the Yampa Valley Electric, and he was called out. They had lines down in the river, and all of a sudden the water came down. That was in the 70s. Until I was standing on the porch and I took a picture, and it looked like I was in a boat taking a picture of a river. That's how bad it was. It was just rippling.
Wow.
Yeah. And I see new businesses come and go, and some stayed.
Did you ever go to the Cosgrove?
Oh, many times. That was the posh place.
Okay.
The company dinners were held there, and that's where the gentlemen from the businesses in town always stopped for coffee in the morning. But that was the very nice place to go.
Okay.
And that's before any of the Holiday Inn and all that was here. There were only a few, just a few motels.
Okay.
And let me think.
Okay.
Ask me questions.
Well, okay. What was it like raising a family here? What would you do for recreation?
Well, raising a family was wonderful. You know where your kids are. You know who they're with. Most of the time we'd have them all at our house. And people were very, very thoughtful with, you know. In fact, there's an incident one time. See, this, below the hill here was all, there was a big barn on this side and horse corrals on the other. And when you, that was all open, you know. So when the kids wanted to go somewhere, we didn't have cars for everybody. The kids had to walk. In fact, most of the time I walked because we only had one car. My husband had to use it to get to work.
Right.
So one night, my older son, he was approximately 12, at the time. He said, okay, if we go to the show tonight, I said, sure. Because that then was the main entertainment. So he went to the theater. Well, no big deal. And they were always told that if your plans change or you're with somebody else or doing something different, call. So we know, and there was a curfew, they had to be here at 10.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular night, he came home, plenty of time, and the next day I was downtown shopping, and a gal that I went to school with that I seen her at the store, and she said, oh, we had such a nice evening. Your son and his buddies were there. The guys played the piano. They sang. We had such a nice evening. And I thought, now, he was supposed to be at the show. So when he came home from school the next day, I said, I got a feeling you weren't at the show last night. He looked kind of surprised, and he said, well, we got there, and it was a show we didn't care to see. It was not good. So I said, yeah, you went somewhere afterwards, though, didn't you? And, oh, yeah, we went to so-and-so's house and had a nice, but, Mom, we didn't do anything wrong. I said, I know you didn't. He said, but how did you know? I said, mothers know everything. And so when I wrote it in my memoirs, I put down the story about it, and I said, up to this day, he thinks I'm psychic until he reads the story. But you did, people kind of helped each other when the kids, you knew where your kids were and who they were with. And then when Vince died, I can't tell you about the people, the warmth and the love that came. People I didn't even know brought food. They were here for me all the way through. And it's just unbelievable, the wonderful town Craig is. And to me, it's home, and it always will be. Milwaukee was wonderful, and I was there until I was 12. But we moved here in 1943, and after I got in with, I have more companionship with the kids now than we did in school because they had their little cliques, I was a new kid. But when we had our 60th class reunion, which sounds terrible, doesn't it? We decided, there's 8 of us, that we got together once a month for lunch. And we'd always pick a different restaurant. And the 8 of us have been doing that ever since. And it's wonderful because it's created a companionship that we really didn't have before.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's still going on.
Oh, yes. In fact, one of them just came to see me the other day with a beautiful card from all of them. And, it's been really great. But it was limited what we could do in Craig, but we made our own entertainment.
Right.
Craig is a wonderful place. It really is.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Have I talked your ears off?
No, this is good. Do you have any, just kind of to close everything, do you have any other stories or anything you'd like to have recorded before we turn that off?
I can't think of anything real quick.
Oh, that's okay. You can take a second if you want.
Okay. I told you the Historical Society and the gal I work with put all my work at the museum and the library in page protectors and albums. Mm-hmm. There's 11 albums, about that wide. Beautiful.
And you've done up to 1945.
Yeah, I'm finishing. I was in December when I did this.
Oh, okay.
But I'm determined I'm going to do what I can to finish it out.
Mm.
And I can't thank my family and friends. I can't tell you how many friends have been here. Well, look at the cards.
Yeah, we saw them when we came in.
And people have been here, and they've been calling, and it's just so heartwarming,
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have anything specific to share about your project? Do you remember any specific...
About what, hon?
Your project that you've been working on. Do you have any
The
specifics?
research?
Yes,
Mhm.
your research. Any
Oh.
special
Oh, I want you to
stories
kind
or-
of glance at that.
Oh.
That was the first newspapers that came out. I don't know what all I got there,
Oh.
but I thought you might find that interesting. Just
Right.
a little bit.
So you typed all of these?
Wow. How long have you been working on this project?
It's in 1987.
1987, that was the year.
And you typed all of this?
Hand, by hand.
Wow.
And then when my son taught me, and then I'd bring it home and I would type it up on the old-fashioned typewriter, you know, this kind. Then the kids taught me into getting a word processor,
Mhm.
and I worked on that for a while. It took a while to learn that too, you know. And then I got the computer,
Mhm.
and I took the class on it, and the kids have all been here to help me learn. It's
Mhm.
hard to learn at my age,
Mhm.
and they helped me learn. And so then I could come home and put right into the computer, you know, and that
Right.
helped.
Right.
But I didn't have to handwrite it anymore. They let me have copies from the library.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. But there should be some articles about well, maybe it's in one of the other books, but I tried to get, like, the price of clothes
Mhm.
and the price of food,
Mhm.
house dresses, 99 cents, shoes, $1,
Wow.
and J.C. Penney's was here then, and the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule was situated where the thrift store is.
On Yampa.
Yeah. And then there were several pool halls. That was the men's entertainment. And of course, there's always the bars. And my mom's flower shop was located right next to the Popular Bar. And she was a very true artist. She went to Chicago to learn.
Mhm.
And the highlight of all her creations was, have you heard of Bill Sweet?
Yes.
Okay. This is all connected with the Bassetts and
Right.
Cassidy and all that. When Bill Sweet died, they ordered the flowers from the family,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted a saddle. And they got the frame of a saddle, and she did the whole saddle in flowers, and it was the most beautiful, and we never thought to take a picture.
Mhm.
And another thing I forgot to mention, my dearest friend lived at the end of the block. They moved there, and she was Josie Bassett's granddaughter.
Oh, okay.
And I learned all about the Cassidys and the Bassetts and all them from her. And then Queen Anne's husband, Frank, after Anne was dead, and he was having health problems, and he went to live there. And we got to meet him, and he told us all to call him Uncle Frank.
Oh.
And he was a dear, dear fella. And of course, Betty and her husband Nelden became our dearest friends. They were the closest. In fact, should I go on?
Yes, please do.
Nelden told me at Vince's funeral how they first met.
Mhm.
And one day it was getting stormy out, and they had just taken off most of the roof. They were replacing it. And we had gone to church, and on the way home, Vince says, those poor people are up there trying to fight the storm before it gets here. So what he did, he come home, got his work clothes on, and went back. Well, Nelden told me at the funeral, he says, you know, the first I seen Vince was his hat bobbing up the ladder, and with his hammer, and he says, hi, I'm Vince. And he started nailing, and that's how they met.
Wow.
And Betty and Nelden became wonderful friends. So.
Wow.
Amazing.
What was I going to ask?
Thank you, honey.
Very
Thank
nice
you.
meeting
Thank you, dear. They rotate and take care. It's been wonderful.
That's excellent. We're not blocking anyone, are we, with our car?
No.
Okay.
See, what else can I think of?
No, that's good so far. Did you ever go to the Signal Hill restaurant? Remember
yeah.
anything about that?
Yeah, we used to go out there.
Okay.
And it was real posh.
Oh, what?
Uh-huh.
Like the Cosgrove?
Yeah, pretty much. Only it was more of a night thing, you know.
Night thing. Okay.
Cosgrove was an all-day thing.
Gotcha.
And then all the companies that wanted a nice dinner for their company would have it at the Cosgrove. Once in a while at the Signal Hill.
Okay.
Let's see, what else would be interesting? Well, where the museum is now, that used to be the armory. And during World War II, there were many dances that they would hold there for the homecoming servicemen, the different ones that were home on leave. And that was a fun place. And then they also had programs that they had there.
Did you attend any other type of events there?
Well, they had sports there and
Sports.
Programs that they'd have on stage, you know, and
Right.
Mostly the dances is what I remember.
Okay. Right. Do you have any other questions? Right. That about covered it for us, so
Okay.
thank you.
I hope I helped you a little
you
bit.
did.
I
You
didn't
did.
mean to talk so much about myself.
No, that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.